Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. I'm back 2 weeks away. What did I miss? Wrong answers only.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. Nobody tell Sam what we got up to while he was away. The world can never find out.
Hey, this is Arif Hasan from the Wide Left Substack. Naz Reed.
What's happening? Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. Sam, buddy, you need any pointers on how to host this show? Let me know. I'm pretty much an expert now. Okay.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talks Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
What is going on? We're back on the Minnesota Football Party on Locked On Sports Minnesota, also on the Locked On Vikings audio feed. Check us out there. We're so glad you're with us. We do this every Monday and Thursday live. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first watch or listen today. On the show, I'm going to get caught up. I'm going to hear from the fellas what I missed while I was away. 2 weeks since my last show, knocking the rust off today. We also go behind the scenes as the Vikings released their draft room video, 25 minutes of gold. We break it down frame by frame, plus a new playoff proposal in Minneapolis tomorrow. The owners will converge. Do we like the idea or not? Plus, I want these guys' top OTA storyline. It's all on today's Minnesota Football Party. You met the Lukes, you met Arif. And again, I'm Sam Ekstrom. So you're still here. The show is still going. I saw some like Roman ruins in Italy just a couple of days ago, and I wondered if I would come back to something similar. Just rubble, shrapnel, like pillars fallen.
That was the favorite in Vegas, by the way.
Cloning technology has advanced such that you can't tell the difference between the versions of us you saw beforehand versus what you see now. So we're good.
You've changed. You've changed. You're more chiseled, hardened by what you experienced while I was gone. This is what I think I missed. This is what I kind of aggregated all of what I seem to have missed while I was gone. I missed a lot of puff pieces about Randy Moss's kid. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't read or write any, so I'm going to assume that that's what happened.
Yeah,
he did not make the team as expected.
Yet.
He had a fun weekend.
Yeah. It's and now you can sell dental equipment.
Yep.
I remember doing that with who's the tight end from LSU, his kid.
Thaddeus Moss.
Thaddeus Moss.
Thaddeus
People were like mad he didn't come.
He got drafted, yeah.
Yeah, so that's But no, I mean the Vikings.
Do you remember Chris Carter's kid showing up? Duron Carter?
No, we talked about Carter a little bit. Yeah.
He had like a 10-year career
in the
CFL. He was kind of, I mean, this is maybe overstating, but he was kind of the CFL's Terrell Owens, right? He would like ball out for a team. They got sick of him, so he moved to a different team, balled out there. Mm-hmm. It was pretty excellent. I appreciate that kind of career.
It's a good run for sure.
Yeah.
The Legends kids never disappoint. It also seems like I missed some absurd schedule rhetoric about the Lions rest differential. Is that a thing? Like the Lions have.
Well, on this show, we didn't necessarily talk about the rest stuff with the Lions. I did ask these guys what they thought of the Lions road schedule. Sam, I don't know if you've looked at that yet.
Brutal, yeah.
It just hasn't been really an A topic, and at the time too, the schedule is still so fresh. We were just talking about Vikings, but spend 3 to 5 minutes maybe and peruse that Lions road gauntlet. Really, it's pretty insane, top to bottom. Yeah. And granted, they won't be underdogs by more than 3.5 points in any of those probably. But back to back, it is It is pretty brutal.
hostile
Well, it stands to
environment.
reason that because the Vikings have a ton of tough teams on the schedule, but they get a lot of them at home. But I'm sure there are teams in the
Right.
division that have those on the road. That's going to be less
Lions and
favorable.
Bears have all those games on the road.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the AFC North, right? Which they get a lot of them on the road. They get Lamar on the road. They get Burrow on the road. But then also the first place schedule, they get the Chiefs, and they get a couple other first place teams in there as well. So yeah, it's pretty brutal. Maybe we could rip through it one more time. But
I looked up what you were just talking about, Sam. So first of all, I really hate to cite this source because they do so much clickbait on Twitter, but this is good stuff. Sharp Football did the rest analysis. Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's actually right up his alley.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, hey, if you could just keep doing this stuff, that would be great.
Black and white,
Anything
objective. Yeah.
Anything you can do objectively on a spreadsheet, and then we're fine.
But no, the Lions are number one in net rest days versus like average, right? So you take a 7-day schedule and then you get to play on Monday instead of Sunday, you get +1, right? So on days between games, they have the highest net. And in fact, they only have 1 week where they're -1, where they have less rest than a typical team. So
well, how does that work if you play on Monday, right? And you get +1, then you play on Sunday, you're back to even, right? -1.
I don't know. Look at their schedule. I don't know.
So the Lions. So he's saying that the Lions basically play a lot of teams coming off Monday night games.
Oh, okay, I see. Got it.
Yeah.
The Lions would have a 1-day advantage in rest. I've got a couple schedule takes personally. I just wanted to
Let's hear 'em.
my final observation of what I missed while I was gone. So JJ McCarthy's never had a Mike and Ike. That was the only thing.
That's true.
Hilarious,
Well, now he has.
dude.
That was so cute.
Oh.
Hilarious,
this?
dude.
What?
Yeah, Justin
Dude,
Jefferson and JJ
hashtag
McCarthy went to
chemistry.
a Wolves game together, and they
Front
shared
row,
Mike and Ike's.
Wolves
And it came
game.
out later that was
just
JJ
the
McCarthy's
whole-
first ever Mike and Ike's.
Oh,
And you know
so
too, it's so
adorable.
on brand for JJ to just have a handful of candy chilling in his pocket too, right? He loves the sweets, right?
You know
he loves
he's-
it's not
Yeah.
he's not
You
a
know Justin
chocolate
Jefferson
sweet
has
guy. He's
indulged
that
in a Mike
fruity,
and Ike, yeah.
sweet and sour kind of dude. And I don't know how you guys feel about, but Mike and Ike's, that's like
they're pretty good.
they're bottom on my power rankings. So
They're
Bottom.
like a B- candy to me. They're fine.
That's kind of where I'm at. Is that they're
Do they go
which,
undrafted in the Halloween candy draft typically?
like every year? I'm
Yes,
pretty sure.
typically,
Yeah.
every year.
almost always.
yeah.
But like if I end up with Mike and Ike's in my Halloween haul, so long as there's not a too large a proportion, I'm not like disappointed, right? They're
Sure.
like candies where if they show up in there, I'm like,
Yeah.
what a waste of space.
Right.
That's not really where I'm at with Mike and Ike's.
Which is what, for example, for you? What's a waste of space candy for you?
Well, okay, so this is just me, and I understand no one's gonna agree, or not many people are gonna agree with me. But anything with shredded coconut, I just can't. That's
Dude.
just it's not working for me.
Mounds Bar. It's like
Yeah.
just one candy. Like I can't think of any other coconut candies.
There's a
right?
couple, but that's
like
the
a
primary.
Smarties.
one.
Macaroon,
Smarties are just filler.
Smarties.
Smarties are filler. I used to like them a lot. Now I'm a little, they are filler. It's chalk.
It's kind of like the Valentine's
Literally.
heart candies. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's cute, but I'm not eating that.
yeah, that's adorable.
Put it in the
Have
trash.
at it. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like the
Um,
card you get on birthday. It's like, that's great. I love that. But when you leave, I'm throwing this away. What am I doing? I'm keeping this? I'm holding on to this?
Wait, I'm keeping this.
How long do I got to hold on to this? It's like when you give a girl some flowers, she's like, oh, that's nice. How long do I have to like walk with this in my hand?
You're ripping.
Don't
dude.
have a vase on me.
I need a vacation too, Sam. All right. You're not the only one.
You're doing your own job
had
and
a-
my job for the last 2
crazy
weeks.
like 4 weeks. I get it.
It's been wild. It's been wild. Wait for the book. Wait for the
Yeah.
tell-all book. Okay.
Is the Timberwolves season ever going to end for Luke Inman?
Yeah.
So bittersweet.
So this is my main thought on the Vikings schedule. They don't have a true road test between weeks 1 and 9. Now you might be saying, Sam, they play the Chargers in week 8. That's not a true road test. That's going to be a Vikings home game. So they go
true.
from week 1 at Soldier, which by the way, I know that the Soldier curse has officially been broken, that Vikings own it now.
Mhm.
Still terrifies me because you're giving Ben Johnson
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of in
whole
the same,
off-season
same
ramp
spot
to
as
think-
you. It's
No,
it's
we
like, hey,
Sam,
statistically, this hasn't
Yeah.
done a thing in a while, but like,
Yeah.
I
Sam,
don't
It's
know.
always slop. It's the Vikings win the slot, but it's still always slot.
Nobody feels good about the at Soldier game ever, even though we win. We've won 5 out of 6, whatever it may be. Sam,
always
to your
by
point,
1 or 2 or 3 points.
Yeah, I asked these guys.
Like magic is still in the air.
I asked these guys, give me a possible upset game for good and bad, and I think Arif, you're the one to point out Bears at Soldier. How about Week 1? And I don't know, maybe the Vikings would be underdogs anyways. I think we could probably look that up, but that feels like a potential, not trap game, but like, it's at Soldier. You just never feel good about it.
KOC's just got to whisper some sweet nothings in Caleb Williams' ear before the game. Like,
man,
I just remember how
you throw this game, all right, by the trade deadline. I'm making calls.
We'll get you here. We'll get you in purple. So you've got that game scary. Then you've got back-to-back home games. Not only are the Vikings undefeated in Europe, but you've got the Steelers who, whether it's Rodgers or not.
I think it's going to be Rodgers the way.
Rodgers abroad again is really funny.
Yeah.
You're going to be favored in that game.
It is. I didn't think about that. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Rodgers in Europe again. You're going to be favored in both games over there, and you're going to have favorable crowds in an official. That's a road game.
Yeah.
So 2 true road games, could have been cold weather. Those are now in Europe, probably with a pro Vikings crowd. Week 6 bye, back home against the Eagles, favorable crowd in LA on a Thursday night. You don't have another true road test between week 1 and week 9 at Detroit. That's crazy.
I like how you did expand the kind of, or I guess restrict your definition of what a true road test is to discount literally a road game in Los Angeles.
Okay, so
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Super real of you. Yeah.
They can't produce a crowd or anything like that, but it is just like funny.
And even if you want to give the Chargers credit for that being a road game, it's still legitimately between 1 and 8.
No.
Actual true road
it's a really
game.
long stretch of not having. The Vikings were in a lot of ways advantaged by the schedule, right? I mean, we talked about this a little bit, but I think a lot of people's initial reaction to having consecutive international games was like, oh man, I can't believe they would do this to the Vikings. Huge favor they did the Vikings, I think, getting rid of those road games. And my argument was that you have one essentially neutral site game and one home game because the Vikings have the rest advantage, right? We were just talking about that against the Browns because they get to stay. So I think the Vikings got hugely advantaged by the way that the schedule fell
they
down.
Definitely did. I don't even think we talked about this on the Thursday show, but not having to go to Heinz Field where they've never won apparently, which just blows my mind. Not having to go to Cleveland, obviously, where they haven't won since I don't know.
Well, they haven't played like that.
Okay, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Actually, that was the last game in Cleveland. Was the Peterson stiff arm farm?
Yeah, can't remember another one after that.
Snatched his soul. Yeah,
I will say. Does it worry you guys at all? I feel like every time we bring up the international games, we do talk about hey, NFL actually did us a favor. We have so much faith and confidence in the Vikings organization, the coaches, all the logistics. They're going to be ready to play football, right? And it's not like the Jaguars going over there, right? Are we glossing over it too much? Are we leaning too much and just already counting those 2 games as dubs?
Anyone is treating those games as givens, and I think the fact of international travel does flatten outcomes a little bit. It makes it a little bit easier for worse teams to do better, better teams to do worse. But I also think that this is a net positive. I would rather the Vikings have this situation, for the Vikings, than the natural situation of them having road games in Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Now, again, there's a bunch of fans in the Rust Belt that have not been able to watch the Vikings play.
It will be 24 years at the next opportunity. 24 years between games in Cleveland.
Get your no, because the Cincinnati game's a home game. Man, that's wrong.
And who knows? 2030. What happens in 2033? I think the home schedule, this is, if you have season tickets, what a year for you.
I was literally, Sam, I was going to ask you, this is the best year to be a season ticket holder since when? I literally thought about, okay, Sam, we're going to talk about the schedule. We're going to revisit that again. I want to know, just top of your head, this is the greatest year to be a season ticket holder for the Vikings since blank. When is it? 09?
I would
the excitement.
I would say 2016 because that was the first year in the stadium.
Yeah.
Not knowing the schedule was great or anything, just the first year in the stadium.
Opened with prime time game right away, San Francisco, right? Jimmy G, was that the Saints game?
First, that was
First
Packers.
one.
Packers was the first home game.
Got
Yeah,
it.
because the
With,
Saints was the next year,
Bradford.
right? With
Was it
Bradford.
Bradford's debut.
Mm.
Yeah, Bradford's debut, I think. After Sean Hill won in Tennessee,
Sean Hill,
right?
yeah.
The day after Luke
Digging
Inman got
deep.
married.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But no, it's an unbelievable
wedding.
home slate. You've got, and it's not Cousins, but I think Penix actually creates an even better game with the Falcons in prime time.
Mhm.
Burrow and Chase versus Jefferson in week 3.
LSU game.
LSU game, Hurts and the defending champs coming in week 7. Lamar.
That's what we
after
picked
that.
for our upset game, the Eagles game. Would love to know
Yeah.
what you think could be an upset game as well. But just coming out of the bye, I talked about the Super Bowl hangover a little bit. Teams that, make it to the Super Bowl, win or lose, just that usually start a little bit slower. I know this is getting close to the middle of the season, but me and Arif, I think, both picked that Eagles game as a potential upset.
And I'm not even convinced that the Vikings are going to be underdogs in a lot of these home games. Maybe early against Cincinnati if the line hasn't caught up. But I'm pretty bullish on the Vikings.
I think the
I would
opening
be
line is
surprised
out
if they were-
on a lot of these.
Yeah, like
which
the
obviously is
favorites
going to
against,
change a
like, Dallas and
ton, right?
Yeah, but I think the Vikings
they're
should
actually
be
only
favorites.
favored in 7 of the 17 games as of now.
Interesting.
No kidding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of uncertainty about JJ McCarthy, but I'm a little surprised if they're not favored against Cincinnati, and
They are. They are
okay,
by
they are.
1.5.
yeah, so that makes sense. So really it's up until you get to that Eagles game. The Eagles are so interesting, right? Because like 2 years ago, they produced this like 10-1 record and then they collapsed late. I think the advanced statistics suggested that they weren't nearly as good as their record, and that kind of bore out a little bit, overcorrected a little bit. And then the next year, obviously, they improved pretty dramatically. But I feel like, despite being a Super Bowl winning team, I just feel like the fundamentals of the Eagles are not as strong as a lot of teams that we consider to be in the upper echelon, the top tier. And so they do seem like a team where there's a little bit more to take advantage of. Now, that secondary obviously improved a lot faster than I expected. Those rookies have done a lot for them. So we'll see. But I think there's more there to take than I think people typically
They are
imagine.
favored in weeks 2 through 4. No, excuse me, 2 through 5. Falcons,
Yeah,
Bengals,
makes sense.
Steelers, Browns, and then they're
They're
not
not
favored
favored
again
in Soldier, but they are favored
at home
Not?
versus the Bears.
in
and
both
then
the road international games.
They are
Yep.
favored against the Bears by 1.5 on FanDuel as of now.
Okay.
week 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at DraftKings.
It could have changed. It
I'm looking
could
at
have
that.
changed. Yeah. We don't know what
Um,
that, we don't know what that
That's
is.
what book here,
for
Luke.
sure.
Yeah.
Well,
The home schedule is unbelievable. I think the road game that would worry me would be Seattle, just because it's Seattle. There's a revenge angle with Darnold. Seattle's always a mystery. You don't know how they're going to be playing at that point. I think that what's the over under on the Seahawks this year? 8.5,
7.5, 8.5.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's always an upset alert game. But I love that you end the season with 2 at home. I love that you get the final game against the Lions at home on Christmas, and you get the Packers with a rest advantage as well in Week 18. I think that's pretty
Sam,
good.
how do you feel about the trap game potential of that Giants game coming off of Sunday Night Football going into the Lions?
Well, you know how I feel about Russell Wilson, Luke. I mean, you know how much I
Hey,
respect
Jackson Dart by then.
his greatness.
We-
And
Can we do
Look-
another bet on Jackson Dart versus Russell Wilson?
how about Darnold versus Wilson? See if we can get a
Darnold
full
versus
17
Wilson again?
from both
And
of them.
another Darnold versus. I'll take the same bet. I'll take Darnold again.
Luke painted
Using
a great
the same
picture. Luke painted a great picture of we go into Dallas, Jerry's World, prime time. We beat them, riding high, right? Already looking ahead to Lions, Packers at home, and then you go to the Meadowlands, the Giants, right? And all of a sudden it's Jackson Dart for the first half. He throws 3 picks, and then Jameis comes in at halftime or something, and then just goes
It's
wild.
cold in that
It's
one.
cold, it's
like a little
windy.
sleety.
You've been playing great, but you're only up 3 at halftime for some reason. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
I love the idea
gotta-
that Jackson Dart throws too many picks, so it's time to bring in Jameis. Like,
What is the exact logic
Where
that
are
we
they
had to
at
deal
in
with?
their season, right?
With
That,
Nick
like,
I'm
Mullins
trying to
watch.
figure out
Jameis plan.
who their interim coach will be at this point, because Dable will be fired. So is Mike Kafka the interim coach Mike
Yeah.
Kafka.
Yeah.
And
former
he'll
Northwestern
have brought them
quarterback.
to like a clean 500 since the firing. It'll just be too late, They'll be eliminated. They'll have nothing to play for.
They'll be playing hard for the interim coach. Maybe it's the
or just
Antonio
everybody wants
Pierce
to
phenomenon.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think it's a fun slate. I really like the Vikings this year. I think it's a 12-5 team. I like that you have the tough games at home. I think that's the biggest take. If you want to spin an optimistic picture for this year's team, you are getting the cream of the crop in your building. That's going to swing things a lot if they play the way at home like they did last year.
Let me ask you this, Sam. I asked these guys this question. Peak in the pit, right? Best stretch, worst stretch. We talked about the worst stretch already. I mean, there's so many like tough little 2, 3, 4 week windows. We had a hard time coming up with a quote unquote best stretch. Where's the 3 or 4? Because you're optimistic, 12-5, which is great. Where's the 3-4 week window where it's like I feel good about that? I like that stretch right there.
Yeah, feels like it's early. Feels like it could be Falcons, Bengals, and then the 2 Europe games.
Sure,
that
and
seems
going in
gettable.
nearby. Yep.
Yeah. You could. I think that 4-1 at the bye would be really, really possible. That's a good way to get McCarthy introduced. He hits the bye week 6, and then you hit a little bit of a gauntlet. Then you've got Eagles, Chargers, Lions, Ravens. That's a tough stretch coming out of the bye, so you got to feast before it. Yeah. I think that early stretch, and after that, yeah, I mean, I guess Cowboys, Giants feels like that's a doable 2 weeks, but they're both on the road in the NFC East. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think there's a lot of super winnable like 3-game stretches, but doesn't it always happen that you get 2 months into the season, teams get hurt, they get banged up, they're playing below expectations. The perception changes. Right?
You can say it, Sam. Well, you can just say frauds. You can say we find out who the frauds are. You can just say it.
I remember last year, and Luke talked me off the ledge. I was in the fetal position going, Niners, Texans, Packers on the road. You guys, if they don't win week 1, we might be like 0-7.
I don't think I would have been the one talking you off the ledge there.
I was on that team as well.
Wait, so was I the one talking? That doesn't sound like me at all.
Right.
I think you were, because I was like
super low on them.
Well, the conversation was if
I remember. Yeah, I just Luke. I remember your counterpoint to what I was kind of getting into was like so much changes throughout the year. Like Arif's point, we don't know who the frauds are, right? Like by week 3,
Niners
by
didn't
week
even
4,
make
by week
playoffs.
5. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we're like talking about how bad the Niners are. Just like generally, we're just like that's a ruinous team.
Oh, we didn't get the Niners this year on the schedule. Dang. Yeah.
Let's pause. Come back with some frame-by-frame breakdowns of this Vikings behind-the-scenes draft video.
The Pruder, baby.
Good. It's good. Get some looks at Kwesi, KOC, kind of letting their guard down a little bit in the draft room. We see their plan for the draft and how it played out. It's pretty cool. We've got takes after this. Brought to you today by Skylight Calendar. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos, help families stay organized without the stress. I'm in the meat grinder right now with this. I got a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old. The 4-year-old is in swimming lessons. 5-year-old's in swimming lessons. The 5-year-old's in soccer practice now. It's crazy. We got a wedding this weekend. We got, in-laws coming to watch the kids. There's a lot going on. Skylight Calendar helps with this. You can remove the, I didn't know about that excuse from the family routine, which can so often derail your day and your week. It's a sleek digital display that syncs with your existing calendars, whether it's Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy-to-see place. I need this right now. Coming back from a 10-day trip overseas, it feels like my to-do list is this long with the family. Yeah, I need Skylight. Right now, Skylight's offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's Skylight Cal, SKYLIGHTCAL.com/NFL. And make sure to check out the Ron Johnson Show on Tuesdays, the Care 11 football party on Wednesdays, and we're back on Thursdays. Vikings go behind the scenes. They released their draft video a couple days ago, about 24, 25 minutes, taking you in the draft room. KOC and Kwesi. I know Luke Braun did an episode about this on Locked On Vikings as well. Check that out. Luke Braun, I'll give you the first take. What did you like about this video? Because I thought there was humor, there was strategy, there was real insight. I thought it was super useful if you want to understand how the process works.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, VEN has established a precedent for this kind of quality. They're killing it all the time. They did it. They done it again. Some of the interesting, like I thought there was a lot you could kind of read between the lines with where they were in the war room, how they were talking about Donovan Jackson, how early in the night they were talking about Donovan Jackson, how they were sweating it through like
Seattle.
Yeah. And then, man, I'm really worried the Packers are going to take Donovan. Like, they were pretty honed in on him. And then later in the draft, they were honed in on Kobe King. They thought about taking Kobe King at 139 instead of Tyrion Dawkins. And then they end up grabbing him at 201. And then the other thing I thought was interesting was the counter offer with the with
Sam Howell,
the Sam Howell trade where it was or was it the one where they
it might have been the other one,
top of the third,
where
Tracy could have had an extra sixth but declined that to go from like 189 to 142, which on the trade chart is fairly, those two are pretty close to each other. I think the one he took is like slightly better, but it seemed like an insight into Kwesi's preferences in a draft where you don't have a lot of draft picks at all, to take a lower one and move it up in lieu of just getting a whole nother pick. Very unSpielman like. And that's what I'm like super used to. And also just like there must have been either a big talent cliff there that he cared about a lot, or some kind of principle about like, well, I don't know, after pick 175, it's not as important, or something that they were like super
a tier drop off or something.
Yeah, something like that. So I thought there was a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I love just seeing again behind the scenes stuff, like the actual verbiage, the phone calls now we get, not just from VEN, but like a lot of these NFL teams. 5-10 years ago, you just never knew how it all kind of played out in the draft, and that was one of my favorite parts as well.
Let me ask you about the phone call bit. So do they still use the squiggly cord landline phone because it's easier to record the call for the content? Is that the only reason why they're still in the stone? Like why is it a landline? That's my biggest takeaway from this.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that, just because, well, like the NFL has a lot of inertia, right? Like that's one element to keep in mind. Like, remember the Elvis Dumervil signing got screwed up because of a fax machine? Like that's like
2016. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's crazy, right? But the NFL is pretty slow with these things. So I don't know if that's it. Because like security is not a primary concern here. Like technically a landline in some ways could be more secure than us, but like you're just calling it draft pick. Like it's not that important. Plus that doesn't stop because people just probably call draft picks anyway. So I don't know what the reasoning behind that is. That's kind of interesting. That's a good point, that maybe this is just for making recording easier, but I feel like inertia may play a role here. For me, I think for the video, I really enjoyed how light they kept it. Like just in general, it's like that is not like a bombed out war room, as it were. Like they're having a good time. Like they're focused, and they can be stressed at times, but primarily the atmosphere is really good. But what I liked about this, we talked a little bit about the Donovan Jackson thing, about how like laser focused they were on him, how they talked about like, what are the stress points here? If he gets past 17, 18, we're clear until he gets to like 24 or something like that. They talked about that, but also when they got pretty close, they're like, they didn't super dial in on him at the same time. Like they were focused on him, but at the same time, they're like, hey, we do have this offer. Let's take a look at that and think about that for a little bit. Figure out if we think that he's going to slide if we do take this offer, which we now know that he wouldn't have, right? And they discussed it. So I think that one criticism that I think it's fair to levy against this front office is that they do dial in on individual prospects a little bit too much, and that comes at the cost of sacrificing some good trades and value, and that may have occurred here. But at least with the behind the scenes stuff, we can see that they're not dogmatic about it. Like they may index still a little bit too much on individual players, but they're not dogmatic about it, which is nice.
They certainly didn't show any of the attempted trade calls leading up to the Donovan Jackson pick, which I'm sure were occurring. They kind of just skipped to the part where they called Donovan.
Yeah, well, teams have gotten a little bit, I'm not going to say in trouble, but it's caused a little bit of drama when they've included the trade calls, usually for the other
when it's
team.
a trade you don't
the other
make,
team, yeah.
I was going to agree with Arif though on the tunnel vision aspect, and I don't know if it's even a criticism, but the clip where I think it was Mark Wilf, who seemed super attentive and like relatively helpful.
He cares.
He was.
He loves it. Yeah, he's a fan in there. Yeah.
But Kwesi says it was Friday night after round 3, he goes to Mark. Yeah, so the plan is, so we're going to use that 142 to call back with Seattle and try to get Howell. Then we're going to go get Kobe King and a tight end. Like he told him Friday night exactly what was going to happen, which does speak to some tunnel vision. Maybe not as adaptable, but maybe that's just more commonplace too. When you have your guys that you're targeting and your preferences, I think the perception is that they're constantly adjusting based on the board because Kwesi's all about
that. Was it? They talked about a cluster of tight ends, so they knew that they were going to be able to get one or two.
And I also would add that they wouldn't have included that clip if that's not what happened.
Oh,
right?
Totally. Selective editing. Let's remember that.
So
here's the plan. We're going to get 2 skill players and a developmental quarterback, and then they draft a punter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There was an interesting moment with that in night 1 where they were sort of sweating it with Donovan Jackson, where Kwesi goes up to, I forget if it was Ryan Grigson or Roberts or somebody, and he says, "Hey, have a plan for if we strike out. See what's out there." So I don't know how attentive they were at all on the trade down offers, which was part of our debate after the draft. Was like, hey, these trade downs that happened right after, why didn't they take those? They might not have been into the idea like at all.
Yeah. Let me circle back to what Arif was talking about. And I don't know who the guy was that Kwesi was like leaning in and whispering to, but I thought it was not odd, but maybe a little funny that like minutes leading up to the draft, Kwesi is leaning in and whispering to the guy sitting next to him that, hey, start thinking about what teams we could trade back for if Donovan Jackson's not there. Like we're podcasters. We had those teams memorized back in March, right? Like what?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, wait, what have you guys been preparing? What have you guys been talking about in these meetings?
I think that's a fair point, Luke. I will say this is probably just a focusing exercise for Kwesi. I'm confident that they talked about this beforehand.
For me, I'm really, like, is this the first conversation they've had about the Chiefs and the Giants at 33?
Like, trade these picks. Isn't that crazy? Can you explore that for me?
Like, I'm sitting there thinking, like, what simulations were you running in the past 3 months? Like, Rick Spielman is pulling his hair out watching this right now.
Yeah,
like,
right.
We're 2 hours before you're on the clock. It felt like Kwesi was almost like running the kindergarten version of the draft. Like
that war room was built for Spielman, right? And so you've got like all these digital boards that allow you to simulate all these trades.
Yeah.
Donovan or trade back did seem like the play. Early
it was
on.
It was Donovan, and if he's gone, we'll figure out who takes this.
I think it was Ron Johnson who said they had Donovan rated higher than Tyler Booker. Which
that doesn't shock me.
Talk about it may shock some people though.
I think it should shock most people. That doesn't particularly shock me. I think obviously the consensus right is that Booker was substantially better. But I think one thing that we should understand about the way that a lot of teams approach the draft is that their draft boards are much smaller than the ones that we see.
Yeah, they're not looking
at
the
120 guys they like.
Right. So so like a lot of teams will be actually 120 seems to be, from what I can tell, a typical team draft board. Some teams will expand it all the way out to 150, which is not that many, right? And some teams are as tight as like 60. Like, I think sometimes the Rams can be like that. The Belichick Patriots were certainly like that.
And they're not all 60. The top 60.
Belichick would run out of dudes in like
guys. It's guys sprinkled in that they know they can get on day 3 though too. It's just guys that they like. That
And so they'll evaluate the people that are all like on the consensus board. I've got like 300. They'll evaluate all those players, right? Yeah. But those players aren't team fits for whatever reason, and typically it's not even necessarily like a character thing or an injury thing. It's like Tyler Booker doesn't fit our scheme, right? So we're not putting him in a position to fail by grabbing him. Like, sure, if he's an undrafted free agent, but he's just not on the board. So I think that's kind of part of what happens here is like, oh, they had Donovan Jackson rated ahead of Tyler Booker. I mean, if they were building a team from scratch and they didn't know who their coach was, maybe they'd have Booker higher, right? But for the way that they construct,
for the way
team,
they run,
you know, that's not super shocking to me because of how teams, you know, construct these boards.
I have the same. I have when I do my draft big board, I do it Vikings specific. Like I do it for like with scheme fit in mind, which will lead me to put first round guys in the third sometimes because they don't fit us. I don't think that was why I did it with Donovan Jackson over Tyler Booker. I think I just liked Donovan Jackson.
You just like Donovan Jackson.
Yeah, you just like it.
Yeah. But doesn't seem that crazy to me. I had it.
Funny moments from the video. Quasi's take the trash out alarm coming up.
Dude, that was
so real.
We've all been there.
Was here. If Quasi was here before the draft, once I found out he has an alarm to remind him to take the trash out, catapulted, dude. Like A+ awareness. It's a rare moment when you actually see the analytics, right, come to fruition in real time and make a big impact, right? Like
phone buzzes, game time. Take the trash out.
Game time. Macho Meach, yeah.
Game time.
There it is.
Game time. Other funny moment, KOC telling Tyrion Ingram Dawkins to clean up the sack dance.
That was good. and we talked about it. Right? That was the best part. Hey man, we talked about this.
That's why we're doing this. That's why you're coming here. Like really leaned into it.
We watched film in my office. Your sack dance.
Before we get to the mustache, they showed 3 highlights. I don't know if anybody caught this when they drafted Kobe King. Up on the 25-minute video. The first 2, good highlights, 2 big hits. Third one, they're playing Boise State, and it's Ashton Genty just kind of muscling his way out of an arm tackle and running away.
Oh, and then, I noticed that too. And they cut real early on.
I was like, bold decision there. Did you run out? Like, is that?
Did you run out?
We need one
you
more.
You did not need to use that clip. You could just use a different clip.
So the clip was King missing a tackle, basically.
It was like a low tackle on Ashton Genty, and I don't know how it.
It's not a highlight you want in there. Let's just put it that way. It's not embarrassing or like, oh my gosh, this guy's undraftable now. He's going to get. No, it's Ashton Genty too, by the way. Like, okay. But
right. It's not like when the closest I can remember is like Sanderstill in the national championship 2 years ago. Like just like early on, just getting absolutely not even decleated, just like juked out of his ankles.
Yeah.
And he's like a good run defender, and Washington did a great job picking him and all that. But like that was just like,
what are we doing?
Wow.
This is my one moment, man. I get drafted once, and that's what you're playing up there.
Yeah.
That's
so it's not like that exactly, but it was curious the choices they made.
Jordan Addison lighting up about Gavin Bartholomew.
See, again, to that, it's like, I love that. That's great. I get it. He doesn't talk a lot, but like, was that the whole scouting report? Like, well, Addison likes him. So
Jordan,
we got a cluster. We got a cluster.
It did feel a little bit like, well, there's like 5 of these guys. Just I don't know.
We got a cluster. Addison liked them. Chemistry. Chemistry.
Chemistry.
I mean,
does anyone know the name of our tight ends coach off the top of their head?
Angelico.
Oh
yeah,
that's right.
I mostly remember that because,
you could have said anything there, and I would have went.
I mostly remember that because the next video that was on my recommended after I watched this one was Kevin O'Connell and Pete Bursich breaking down the draft class, which is really great. It's a film room. It's wonderful. Kobe King looks fantastic. It comes out of that looking amazing, by the way.
Love that.
But they do talk about Gavin Bartholomew, and he's like, yeah, I just wanted to, make sure we got, a high potential guy for Angelico to mold or whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, that is the name of the tight ends coach. That's cool. That's how I remembered. But no, I super recommend that video because it breaks down kind of the way that teams might take a look at a prospect. Obviously, it's like limited in terms of like what you're going to get from it. They're going to focus on the positives, and they're going to cater their communication to a YouTube audience as opposed to other scouts and coaches. So there's always a limitation, but I think it's really good. And it gives you a lot of insight on how they plan to use Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, right? So in the consensus big board, for example, he's listed as a 5 technique, which is typically for me stand-in, right? It's just like this typically is not for actually 5 techniques. It's what I use to situate people who could be both edge rushers and
sub package kind of guy.
Yeah. And that's usually how it breaks out in the construction of those positions. But that's exactly what the Vikings. So we heard after he was drafted, we heard Grigson talk about him being used in kind of a versatile manner. But then you get, KOC talking about, what's really funny is that he uses the word defensive end to refer to an edge rusher. He's like a 6 technique, a defensive end. And you're like, oh, it's kind of curious, right? Because technically the edge rusher in the Vikings defense is typically an outside linebacker, right? And we have collapsed all of these. We just say edge rusher because it's a lot more convenient for us. And I think it's the correct move. We do lose a little bit of nuance sometimes, but it was interesting because he was like defensive end and you're like, oh, yeah, now I know what you're saying.
I wonder if every time they watch film with Flores, it's just like, dude, you're killing me.
It's not. Come on, man.
Dude,
yeah,
it's not.
He's an offensive guy. You got to cut him some slack. But they talked about using him on third downs as a 3 technique, as an edge rusher on first and second. Like, it was interesting, and I highly recommend the video. Again, Kobe King looks amazing in that video.
Yeah, love to hear that. Was there one guy, again, like you said, they're not going to make anybody look bad, right? But was there one guy you're a little underwhelmed with? Only 5 options here. You already talked about 2 of them. Was there one guy you're a little underwhelmed
Well, Ty
with?
Felton, because and again, they didn't make him look bad, like you said, but they didn't spend very much time on him, and I was I wonder what that's about.
Yeah.
Yeah, they spoke a lot about intangibles, about his passion. And then when it came to production, they're like, yeah, I mean, he had 100 targets, 140 targets. He was showing up on tape
in the Big Ten
every game,
kind
of volume based. I think there's a lot of technique to work out with him. And
one thing, just now that we're talking about Ty Felton, going back to the schedule, Sam, you like the first 5 games there a little bit, maybe after the Soldier 1, 2 through 5, whatever it may be. Possibly no Jordan Addison. Do you still feel as good with Jalen Naylor as your 2 and Ty Felton maybe as your 3, or however that shakes out?
I'm so curious about Naylor's hands, like whether or not that's going to be, because I think that was the primary issue last year, right?
That's the thing people are mostly mad about, which I do think he kind of got through it.
Yeah, and over the course of his career, his drop rates, not that it's a long career, but the drop rate wasn't an issue the year prior to that, and certainly I don't remember that being an issue in college. So I'm super
kind of had a little moment, which happens, I guess. But yeah, will that stick?
I don't know if you mentioned this last week, Luke. Seifert 6 days ago. Jordan Addison has a jury trial scheduled for June.
I think Braun or Arif looked it up. Yeah.
I asserted something and was wrong, and then Braun looked it up. So that's what happened.
He pleaded not guilty. Pre-trial conference hearing was held Monday. So he is aiming for exoneration. I guess that would be the scenario where there is not a suspension. And if it's June 16th, that's the trial or it's a pre-trial hearing? Because I'm wondering how slowly the wheels are going to move here. Is this going to be resolved by the season? I think.
Correct me if I'm wrong too. You can be cleared of charges, but the NFL could still suspend you.
Yeah,
they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, and that has happened, but it is usually in cases of domestic violence or
civil.
For I would be surprised, I guess, if he was cleared of charges and the NFL still chose to suspend him.
Probably not the case for Addison.
Yeah. I'm just kind of curious, I guess, abstractly about what the legal defense approach is here, because there's not a ton of evidence to bring to bear, and so you're left with essentially the officer's word, which carries a ton of weight in the court of law. So either it could just be, the lawyers is going for they're overcharging my client and they can't prove the charge that they're actually going with. And because of double jeopardy rules, they can't go through the whole process again with a more appropriate lesser charge. Maybe that's what they're doing. Right. But I'm so curious because the officer found him sleeping on the side of a road. That's a tough one.
I still kind of think they're just trying to get a better deal and they're going to settle 3 seconds before the
trial.
Would
make the most sense. If they can plead that down and that's a negotiating strategy.
Totally. Let's do a quick pause, come back with some thoughts on the new playoff seeding proposal that will be voted on in Minneapolis in the next couple of days on the Minnesota Football Party. All right, another rule that may be partially in response to the Minnesota Vikings being a 14-3 team that, in theory, would have had to go on the road and win 3 playoff games to make the Super Bowl. last year. Now they didn't. They lost the first game, and it was a moot point. But like, here's the new proposal. I'll lay it out. The first round stays the same.
Good.
4 division winners host a game. Reseeding based on record in the second round. So if you play out last year, Vikings win the first game, then they rocket up to the number 2 seed, and they would have hosted the divisional round game against, I think, Philly. It would have been Philly last year. Thoughts on the proposal? I like the hedge. I like it. Keep the division championships meaningful, but also don't punish a 14-3 team like the Vikings were in last year. I think it's a good proposal. I would vote yes.
I still don't mind being punished for last year. You crapped your pants against the Lions in week 18. Go on the road.
I'm not even necessarily thinking about the Vikings more so, just broader big picture as far as like I want Bills Chiefs in the AFC Championship every year. I don't want it in the divisional game gave us one of the greatest games of all time, but like I just want those best matchups possible at the end.
I get where you're coming from, Luke. I think that makes a ton of sense. And I like that approach to thinking, but I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm with Braun. For the most part, I'm a little like I'm glad that they're keeping the first, so I'm a little bit more ambivalent. I don't care that much, but if I had a choice, I would keep the system relatively as is, maybe some minor tweaks, which we'll talk about in a second. But the reason I like the division winner approach, where you give the advantage to division winners over superior teams that didn't win their division, is because there are so many elements that I think have taken away from, fairly or unfairly, and whether or not it matters, I don't know, but have taken away from the importance of rivalries in football. And there's no like morally good or bad reason to have them, but I like them, right? And I like having games that matter just because they matter, because you hate a guy. And I think maintaining the importance of division games always ramps up the importance of those rivalries. And so the rivalry games will always feel meaningful, and that ability for them to always feel meaningful kind of adds on to that emotional, history that you develop with a rival that allows you to be like, hey, we're going into this Bears game and they're like a 4-win team, but it matters. It just matters. And I think that rules. I think that that's really cool. And so I'd like to maintain as much of that as possible. Obviously, division winners getting that first home game if they don't get the bye, that helps. But I think allowing them to maintain home field advantage up until they go up against another division winner is another way to do that. And so I prefer to keep it that way. The tweak that I think I'm okay with is if you win the division with a losing record. And then maybe, you get to make the playoffs no matter what. But maybe you don't get home field advantage. Maybe that's screw you. And
that's the thing, too. You think about the NFC South, right? Like, okay, don't you just want the best possible teams that deserved it the most, I guess, quote unquote? And you can take that multiple directions. But it just feels like every year we're like, okay, somebody's actually going to host a playoff game over one of these other teams that won double digits coming from that NFC South. And it just happens to be NFC South the past couple of years. But, you could use that example for any division over the last decade or two.
The NFC West, like a decade ago. Yeah.
NFC West, dude, Charger. I mean, I got Pat Mahomes in my division, and that means pretty much unless everything clicks one year, like I can never win the division. I always have to start the playoffs out on the road. That sucks. Okay. Well,
that NFC South thing, that the 4th seed, I think the only way the 4th seed gets a second home game is if the 6 and 7 both win their games, which feels pretty unlikely. So that King of Doo-Doo Mountain kind of team will probably be on the road most of the time in the divisional round.
Yeah, these are very fringe scenarios.
And
that NFC South team would also have to wait.
I don't feel like we need it. I don't know. Yeah. It feels like the way the Vikings season ended felt fair. I don't know. You crap your pants in the last 2 games and then you got eliminated. Like,
well, the format does not need to change. They lost one. They lost. I'm going to reframe that. They lost one game to the best team in the NFC. So they lost one game in week 17, and then therefore their punishment was they had to go on the road. And I think that this rule was made for teams like the Vikings that are exceptional, that would have, in theory, had to go play at LA, at Philly, at Detroit to make the Super Bowl. like it's a body of work league. It's not a one-game league.
It should hurt to lose to your division rival.
You got swept by your division rival. It was specifically that it was those games too.
The
Lions
they
went
lost
15
to the
and 2.
Lions.
Good for them.
I actually, for me, it's like
a fringe scenario. I don't think we need to change the rules about it.
Yeah, for me, both things are true. Like, I don't think, I want to go save the Vikings because they crapped the bed. Like, you should be able to go into LA, right? You won 14 games. You should be able to go into LA and beat the Rams, dude. Yeah. If you can't, then all right, pack your bags. You're going to Cancun. I also still want Bills Chiefs in the AFC Championship every year.
One thing to kind of keep in mind here, and I think it's kind of interesting because Braun and I are kind of arguing from a more old school perspective, whereas Sam is arguing from, I think, like a newer approach, which I find so interesting given the framework I usually approach these things. But like, we do not award the Lombardi to the best team in the NFL. Mm-hmm. We award the Lombardi to the team that wins the playoffs, right? And those are substantially different. In many years, they're completely different, right? And if we're going to maintain that, I think we don't need to start playing games with like trying to figure out who the actual best team is here or whatever. Like soccer gives the league trophy to the team with the best record of the regular season, right? And usually that is the best team in the Premiership or in Serie A or in La Liga or whatever, right? And that's a fine approach. I think that makes a lot of sense. We see in a lot of those leagues that the games at the end of the year are fairly meaningless, like unless you're fighting for relegation or if that top team is not as far away from second and third or whatever. But, those games kind of matter a little bit less. And that's, they typically award the best team, and that's fine. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I like that a lot. But if we're not going to do that, then we shouldn't, do that. You know what I mean?
Commit to it. Yeah.
Yeah, commit to the nature of playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. My point is a little bit more like a tougher one to nail down, but I think I just don't think it's a problem that your season can be derailed by the wrong loss at the wrong time. Like one game ruined their thing and their punishment. Okay, that seems fine to me. Yeah. Maybe
go win the game.
It is a disparate.
Go win
I don't
the
think
game,
it has to be a perfectly proportionate punishment for each loss. I don't think it needs to be distributed perfectly. Yeah, it's a 17-game season. If you lose the wrong ones, if they were able to take one of those against the Lions, they would have won the division. I think that's appropriate. And that dynamic happens to, teams that are 11-5 and 10-6 too. It didn't have to be 15 and 14 wins for it to go down that way, but you get swept by a team in your division. You don't get the prize for winning the division. That doesn't feel like the rules need to change over.
It's the winners win mentality. Like, just go win. No, just go win. Just figure it out, man. Just figure it out. Like how the Saints probably felt after, Saints Rams 2018. When Nikhil Roby
that was a much
Coleman.
more legit gripe, but you're not going to find any winners win, from dude. Me or Ben Weaver. All right.
So
bad pass interference call in the Superdome. Oh,
you are opposed to this hedge where you still have to win one road game. You don't like the reseed. You're planting your flag on. You don't like the reseed.
I don't think it's necessary, but it just feels a little bit more complicated. And
I'm not going to tear my beard out over it. But
who would be running back coach then? We couldn't have that.
But yeah, no, it's if I could make the decision myself, it would be to not reseed again, with an exception for if you've got a losing record, F you.
Yeah.
But it's not going to bother me too much if they decide to do that.
The change last year would have been Commanders playing at Philly in the divisional round instead of Commanders Lions. That would have been the change.
And the Rams would have gone to Detroit.
Although I will say that Commanders Lions game was fantastic. That was
and I will say Inman's point about getting the best teams into the conference championship game is a good one. I do.
In the fringe scenario where you have a Lions Vikings 15-2, 14-3, it does actually set up a world where the division rivals are more likely to play in the conference championship. which is kind of awesome.
Yeah,
lot
it
of
is
times
kinda
doesn't
Eagles.
happen.
Can you imagine Eagles Commanders NFC
Yeah,
Championship?
Eagles Commanders NFC
Yeah.
Championship would have been awesome.
All
I
the
remember
like Steelers Ravens ones forever.
Oh,
the Steelers Ravens ones were great.
dude,
You remember
those would be
the Packers Bears one where Cutler
Oh,
like
yeah,
Yes.
Jay Cutler tore his ACL.
Yes.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
everyone got mad at him until they realized he like legit tore an ACL and he
Who was the backup that
didn't
came in?
look like he was in pain. Two backups. It was Caleb Haney
Caleb Haney.
and
Caleb
Todd.
Haney.
Todd something, right? Caleb
Bauman.
Haney was in there.
Todd Bauman.
Todd Bauman. What a name.
Todd.
But yeah, no,
Look it
there was
up.
two backups in that game, and when
That's
when the
right.
second backup went in, they were restricted from putting Caleb back in until the fourth quarter because of the way the third quarterback rule worked back then.
Oh,
But everyone was calling Cutler
Todd Collins.
Todd Collins.
Oh,
That's it.
wow.
Yeah,
4 attempts, no completions.
yeah.
And there was a pick six at the end, I think, to clinch it.
well, they
for
knew
Green Bay.
they were passing. It's
Yeah.
not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
Can't judge
But
the
yeah,
book.
everyone was
Um,
mad at Cutler for being a sissy because he didn't look like he was in pain because his facial expression never
Right.
changes.
Right.
And it,
Let's face it.
and it turns
Resting
out,
Cutler face.
yeah, and it turns out he had like fully tore like ligaments, and it was super painful.
Mhm.
And everyone was like, "Why isn't he fighting to get back in?" And it's like I'm
doesn't
surprised he
want
could
it.
walk to the sideline, man. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Super
BJ
quick-
Raji put that game away. That's right, Gail.
BJ Raji. Yeah.
There you
yeah,
go.
um,
Yeah.
Who
man.
who did the
So that's
Packers?
that rule that you
did-
had a rivalry game.
Who did the Packers play in that Super Bowl?
Steelers.
Pittsburgh.
Steelers. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Greg Jennings touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a Packers fan, from that point on, just pain, postseason pain.
Hey, they
We
got
also-
one.
We
though.
also did
They
get a
got one.
Yeah.
fun
After that, they
story about Roethlisberger being so upset that it like haunted him that he lost it, even though he'd already won a Super Bowl. That it
Oh, that's
haunted him.
lovely.
Yeah,
Two.
it's
Two of them.
yeah, and so
Did he win that second one already at that point?
Yeah. He beat the Seahawks and then the Cardinals.
Oh, the
in
Seahawks.
right, yeah.
Antonio Holmes
And
catch.
so he was so haunted, like
Antoine Randall.
he would like he told a story about like being in the bathroom, which you don't want to hear any stories about him being in the bathroom, but he told a story about him being in the bathroom and like looking forward at like the door of the stall and seeing the loss in front of him. Like it was just
burned
haunting.
in his retinas.
Yeah,
Burned
and it's
in
like,
his brain. Wow.
Yeah, man, I agree. You should have beaten the Packers. What in the world are we doing here? I hope you feel bad.
I ran into Jason Garrett in the bathroom at the Senior Bowl.
How'd that go? Did you get a job?
Well, I'm here.
I'm on a podcast. What do you think?
What do you think, bud? I need to spell it out for you?
I mean, Jason Garrett might be on a podcast soon too. Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah, Football Night in America. Not a great show. Not a great show. I've seen better. Let's do a quick pause, and then we'll have our number one OTA storyline for next week before we wrap the program. Week from tomorrow, OTAs, TCO Performance Center. I'm expecting pretty solid attendance, like probably attendance somewhere in the 75, 80 range, 85 maybe. Vikings have a good track record of showing up for these, even if not everyone's participating. Number one storyline. Let's go around the horn. Arif Hasan, give us one.
Who's going to start at quarterback? No.
There's gonna be a report the first day.
Right.
of
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy taking first team reps, and then everybody's gonna be like, "What?" Like,
Well, and how
certain
many
people, I'll
reps
say,
too? It's gonna be
certain
how
people
many reps
are gonna be like,
Yeah.
"Whoa."
Well, we're gonna count the reps for the days that the media are allowed to be at OTAs, which I
Yeah.
remind you is not every day.
What was JJ McCarthy's passing percentage in seven
right.
on sevens? Or
Well,
like
this is what we
Handing
just
off
did
from
with
7 on.
Yeah.
this is what we
Yeah.
just did with Max Brosmer last week.
Yeah.
The media was only there for one of the 3 days, but he was 7 of 9. But the two
The two were
incompletions were interceptions. And is he going to push? For the QB3? Like,
Yeah.
it's tough when
So,
you only get a small sample, right? And
I don't know. Like a lot of the storylines are kind of like silly that they're storylines. Is JJ McCarthy going to start? Is Donovan Jackson going to be the left guard? Like, yeah, those are. Yep, he is. So to me, I'm more curious about how Tyrion Rockins is going to be used. But I think the storyline is going to be what the skill position group is going to end up looking like on both sides of the ball, right? Like, where Ty Felton fits in. what the cornerback, setup is going to be, who the top 3 cornerbacks are, stuff like that.
Yeah, who's your starting left tackle with no Christian Darrisaw? Who's your cornerback 3? Is it Okudah right away? Who is it? I don't know. Blackman healthy. Who's your running back 3? Obviously, I'm assuming Ty Chandler, but I think that's more down the road. If the running back 3 competition is an actual competition, tight end 3, or even 3 and 4, I guess. I'm still a little confused about the tight end room past Josh Oliver and Donovan Jackson. Like obviously he's gonna be the left guard, but I'm curious to see just how he looks the part in pads. Does he look like an NFL left guard? Which I think he will, but like it's always a test when these guys put on the pads for the first time and you're lining up against Jonathan Allen, who's been a Pro Bowler and been in the league for 10 years, who've been doing a lot longer. So you just don't want those guys to be swimming, right? Like just look completely lost right away. Just get your head above water this first week or two and soak it up and just keep grinding it out day by day, because you are a rookie and there's going to be bad days, but you just don't want them to be like, I don't know. Like, I can't remember how Treadwell was right away, but like, just felt like we just assumed he was going to be, like the starting guy. Right. And it just never clicked.
And he just never, he got behind.
Then he started fights in training camp every third day too. And it was like,
he was doing stairs every day before practice.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And then he couldn't practice because he was tired.
Yeah.
I wonder if first day of OTAs, right? Like I think we all assume Donovan Jackson will have that job by the time, anything meaningful is happening. But I do wonder first day of OTAs.
Yeah, they might
still be incumbent. Did they make him, do they make him actually win the competition?
Got hurt.
I think they do.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
I think it's Brendel day 1.
Yeah.
And then by day 3,
sure.
then he's at, or it's Brendel for for OTAs and then first day of camp. Donovan
I could
Jackson
see that.
Yeah.
I could see that.
But like Garrett Bradbury had the job from day 1 on.
Who was his competition?
There was never any competition there.
Oh,
if I recall correctly, Ed Ingram did not have the job in OTAs.
Correct.
No.
Yeah,
it was somebody it was Jesse Davis.
I was just going to say the 7th conditional.
And then in training camp, I don't think the first day of training camp, I don't think Ed Ingram was if I remember correctly.
No, it took him
took him a while.
Yeah,
like Jesse
for
Davis
a second round
didn't even
guard,
play in a preseason.
It took
game.
him a while.
Right. Yeah,
like
so,
it was he and then I think he got hurt or something like that too. Or no, that was Chris Reed.
And Ingram was like a
Chris Reed. Chris Reed. Yeah. Forgot about Chris.
So I'd be curious. Also, to your point, Luke, Donovan Jackson is short for a guard. He's like 6'4", which is gonna look small among.
He looks small in the rookie
next
picture.
to Justin School. Yeah, like he's the same height as Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, which makes it feel way smaller.
Yeah.
Those guys are also 6'4".
Right.
Yeah. Like Kwesi was a basketball player and Kevin O'Connell was a quarterback, right? You have to
NFL quarterback.
Next to your coach and you're the same height when you're an O-lineman looks so bizarre. It's so weird looking. But he is short for the position, so that there might be like an aesthetic thing to look at
for sure.
Although to me, that's actually a good thing. I think that's great for leverage.
Right, for leverage. Yeah.
I want to see if Theo Jackson is next to Harrison Smith from day 1. I want to see how he's deployed.
Yeah.
And
who else would it be? Metellus?
And who are the number 1 corners?
It would be so interesting to see Metellus be next to him as a too high.
Or is there another guy I'm not thinking of?
Yeah, like what are the packages?
Jay Ward.
What are the packages?
On the
Maybe
field
that's the bigger
snap?
question. Yeah. What is Flores tinkering with?
They've
and
talked
saying,
about
okay,
Jay Ward a little bit.
Oh,
yeah, they
Ward.
talked about Brian Asamoah too. Come on.
No, this is different though.
Not this offseason.
This is
but I meant
talking about Brian Asamoah like his first year is like okay, but
no, his second year they talked him up a ton. They even gave him like an individual presser.
Yeah.
They didn't know they had Ivan Pace yet.
Well, I mean, they knew,
did.
but
they didn't know what was going to happen yet.
Yeah. But they were like, he's seeing the game so much faster. They made him seem like he was. I think I said this last show. They made him seem like he was Patrick Willis. Like it was crazy how much they talked him up, and then they gave him like an individual media, like, "Hey, you all want to talk to the new starting linebacker, Brian Asamoah," and then he just like never started.
That was a bizarre camp.
You can't do that to him. You jinxed him. Too much.
That was a really bizarre
Too
camp.
much. He got in his head. The lights got too bright. The scrum was too big. Chris Thomason's just right in his bubble. Like, well, I'm not ready for the spotlight, dude.
Thomas was
test, right?
such a good test for young players.
Yeah,
it really is.
What's
the Broncos over under this year? Take a peek at that.
We're like 9.5 months from the Mekhi Blackmon injury. I would not expect him to be full go. And I'm curious who
he has been fully cleared. I think he was fully
We
cleared.
got to be close.
Deeper in the offseason.
Got to be on the bubble. Yeah, you
Let
think
me
he's
actually
clear?
look that up because I think that already has passed.
They don't expedite guys in OTAs. Like they if there's anything, lingering, they're holding them.
Mm-hmm.
So I would not expect
in February.
To see him.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
He was fully cleared from for all activity and should be ready for everything.
Hold on, February wasn't it a torn ACL? When did he get hurt? Didn't he get hurt in camp?
In camp, right?
Yeah, in camp.
That would be February would be 6 months. That's just like a really fast recovery.
New medical reality, Sam. Ever since
2025, dude.
Charles.
Don't think too hard about it.
AI.
Okay. God.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna go there,
no, we don't.
Be honest.
No,
this was a Darren Wolfson report.
Okay.
That means.
Thank you. Good to know. So when he's cleared.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if they really lean in too hard to Byron Murphy in these things. I think we're going to see the depth. Like I think we're going to see a lot of.
Yeah, they're going to play around.
You should.
Yeah,
you don't need your staples out there, right? You don't need Harrison Smith out there. You're right.
I mean, a lot of it's just like walk through or 7-on or whatever.
I've already forgotten.
Yeah, you might get Theo. You might get Theo and Jay Ward back there. Actually,
it could happen.
Yeah, I mean now's the time.
Did anyone see the glowing report about my guy, my pick to be Mr. Mankato, Zemiah Vaughn, showing out at rookie camp?
Yeah, he was one of the guys that picked off Max Bradman,
he had a great play. Yeah, he was the pick 6 guy. Yes, did see that.
Yeah, we were talking about UDFAs we liked a couple shows ago. We had someone in the comments being like, "How come no one's talking about Zemiah Vaughn, guy?"
Because I was gone.
Good call. Good call, guy.
Gone.
It was our bad.
Looking the part, flashing. He's flashing out there.
Love it.
Just like when 2014, me and Arif standing on the sideline of training camp, and Derek Cox had like his second pick 6 in back-to-back days, just screaming down the sideline.
What a
dude.
What a reality.
Speaking of pick 6
plays,
hats off to Cameron Dantzler, pick 6 in the UFL.
Hey,
the needle.
He's back. He's back. Gonna get signed.
If he signs to the NFL team, do we call that threading the needle? Is that
That's good. Excellent. We're back on Thursday. Carol Evan crew on Wednesday. Ron Johnson tomorrow. Full lineup. Locked on Sports Minnesota. Locked on Vikings YouTube channel and audio feed. Find us in lots of places. Get more behind the scenes draft video breakdown with Luke Braun on his latest show. Check out Wide Left with the Reef. Check out the postcasts with Luke Inman. Twins rarely lose. T-Wolves not going to lose again. It's all good on the postcast. And I'm Sam Ekstrom. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, commenting, and subscribing. And we will talk to you next time.